So for those of you joining us for the first time, the Rev Signal podcast the series kind of focuses on how various product and go-to-market leaders in the B2B SaaS segment in particular are using data to drive revenue. And we have a very exciting conversation lined up here, very somewhat different from the ones that we've done before, where we're talking to Niran, who took a very leadership approach as he joined Skilljar in terms of enabling his GTM team with insights from product data. Usually it's the other way around, where the GTM teams are asking for that information. So we're going to learn more about his journey, learn about some of the challenges along the way, what kind of technology infrastructure that he put in place, and anything else that you have questions around. Please feel free to jump in and ask questions. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, then I'll mention again that we encourage this to be a conversation. So feel free to ask questions, and we'll route those questions over to Niran as we're kind of going through this. And we will also make a recording of this available to you afterwards, so you can share that with colleagues at work or anybody else who might be interested in this topic. So with that, let me reach back out to Niran. Niran, if you don't mind, share a quick introduction on what Skilljar does for those not familiar with the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So Skilljar is a software company, and we enable our enterprise customers to create and publish courses to train their customers. This helps to retain them as well as grow their usage and spend. So we have customers like LinkedIn, Cisco, Spotify, Shopify, and others. Mayfield is one of our customers, so shout out to Rajiv Batra, and I think Mayfield is one of your investors as well.
Right. Yes. In many of our previous sessions, it's usually the go-to-market team that goes out to the product or engineering team to request data and insights that are relevant to running the business. Now, in your case, you're the ones who spearheaded that, a couple of years ago when you joined Skilljar. So tell us why. What prompted you to engage in this way?
Yeah. So there is a simple answer and a more philosophical answer. So the simple answer is I saw a need that would unlock significant value, and I wanted to solve it. So that's the simple answer. The more philosophical answer is I firmly believe that the purpose of a product team is to drive customer outcomes and business outcomes. And so for that, we got to be able to measure. So that's how we ended up taking up more ownership of this initiative.
Got it. So share a little bit about your prior experience before Skilljar. Did you attempt something similar at other companies?
I'll share a quick experience-wise. So I'm currently VP of Product at Skilljar. Then prior to this, I was at Eightfold AI, where we built responsible AI and used it in products for recruiting transformation as well as employee development. And before that, I was at Bloomreach, where we used AI for personalized online shopping at scale. And so I've been in the data and AI space for a long time. And the specific problem that you mentioned about the need for product usage data for go-to-market teams was something that was I've seen across these various companies. And while we hadn't really, this is the first time at Skilljar that I've actually implemented something like this. The need has been there throughout, and I guess the third time's the charm.
There you go. Sounds great. So you mentioned that the need has been there throughout. So maybe talk to us a little bit about the need from the customer success side, from the sales side. What does that need end up being? Like, why is this data relevant and useful to them that you feel like you have to fulfill that request?
Yeah, so I think so there's the product side and the go-to-market side, or the CS side. On the CS side, people want to know how their accounts are doing. And so there's a core problem with all SaaS companies, which is like the growth happens on an account-by-account basis, while product usage happens on a user-by-user basis. And so you need to combine those two data sets, if you will, to ensure that you have a comprehensive view of how your business is doing, and therefore how the product is doing as well. So And this problem underlying this is these are in two different systems, different data stores. How do you join them, and all those challenges with the combining different data sets. That I see as the problem to solve, and from there we need to go like make the data actionable and useful for both go-to-market teams as well as product folks.
Got it. Great. I love your comment about how growth happens at an account level, but really usage happens at a user level. I think there's something there that we can build upon as we talk through this. For those of us just joining the conversation, please let us know where you're joining from. Let us know which company you're with. We'd love to take your questions and have you be part of the conversation. So feel free to ask your questions in the chat session. We're monitoring the webinar chat and we'll bring those questions live into the conversation. Okay, so coming back to our discussion here. So, you came into Skilljar, you noticed the need that there was this opportunity to create better insights for the CS team, the go-to-market team, et cetera. Talk to us a little bit about what kind of insights and what kind of data necessary to support those insights.
Yeah, so at the most basic level, there is this concept of a customer health score, which I'm sure your audience is very well aware of. And typically it has two parts, maybe more, but basically there's one side, which is the product usage, and then the other side is relationships, and especially the exec relationships. So the product usage part is where we focused our efforts, and to make it such that the information is available both in Salesforce, where the CSMs generally are, as well as more detailed reports in our system, which we built, which is built on QuickSight and Redshift.
Sorry, QuickSight and what again?
And AWS Redshift.
Got it, Redshift. Okay, so your technology infrastructure is Salesforce, Redshift, and QuickSight, and Salesforce is where the CSMs were primarily spending their time day to day.
Yes, and the technology infrastructure has more pieces to it. So, for example, on the go-to-market side, we have Salesforce, of course, for CRM. We also have HubSpot for marketing and pre-sales, Zendesk for support. And then on the product side, we have our product infrastructure, and all that information is then piped into this system for which is a data warehouse, and that's powered by Redshift. And why Redshift? Because we are an AWS shop. And that's why Redshift. And then for visualization of the data, AWS offers this thing called QuickSight, and so the dashboards are built on QuickSight.
Got it.
There's also some prediction as well, ML and AI-based prediction that QuickSight offers out of the box as well.
Do you expect the CS teams to log into the dashboards in QuickSight, or do they typically receive information about what accounts have what health score out of Salesforce? Yeah.
So the information or the key information is available in Salesforce, almost at the account record. And I'm using account record very generally. So at the account record, there are a few fields which say like what is the usage and maybe some scores related to the usage. And there's a way they can log into our dashboards to see detailed information, like why the score high or low, like where is the usage happening. There's also the CSMs have access to the product as well. So for further insights that the customer also sees, they can see the dashboards too. So they have three different places, but the starting point is they're already in Salesforce, so make some key information available right there, so they can decide where to go next.
Got it. Okay, so coming back to the technology infrastructure, now obviously the product usage data is originating from the product side. So how is your product instrumented? Are there backend data sources, or you sort of the engagement, with the app itself? Like, what are the different ways in which you look at product data?
Yeah, so our product overall has several areas, if you will, and so we need to have instrumentation on all these areas so that we know how usage is happening. We also have the who's using this. And sometimes it's a human user, sometimes it is an API user. And all that is tracked. And then that information is stored in our real-time data stores as well as more analytics data stores. And there's data pipelines that move data from these different data stores and also into our data warehouse. We have and we have on the website itself, we have tracking through JavaScript-based tracking tools, Segment being one of them, and from there we can pipe information into the product data stores and then back into the data warehouse as well. That's how we collect various. We probably have more information on product data usage than we need, but it's important to figure out how to make good use of this data through insights.
Niran, we talk a lot about on this show. We talk a lot about how the go-to-market teams can use product data. I'm curious, like, how is the product team and who are the people in the product team that are using product data today, like in your organization? Like, how does the data get consumed?
So we still use the same dashboards that our CSMs use. The difference typically is we need to look at it across customers or maybe across a slice of customers or a segment of customers. And the CSMs typically want the same usage data, but maybe at their book of business or specific accounts and so on. So it's essentially aggregating in different ways. And to specifically to your question on how the product team uses it, if you take any given feature, sorry, give me 1 second. I'm going to stop now.
Sure. For those of you listening in and wondering, we will resume in just a moment as Niran comes back. So, okay, go ahead, Niran.
Yeah. So on the product team usage, what happens is we need to look at before we even build or commit to building anything, we need to prioritize features and we need to have a prediction on what will drive usage, what will drive customer outcomes, and therefore business outcomes. So that's the first usage. And then the second thing is, like, after release, did we actually meet those success criteria that we had set up in the beginning? And that particular information is useful for both the sales as well as CS teams, because you're making a promise to the market about how you will get value from a product. So it's the same problem, same value being delivered, different views and different ways of making this data available.
Got it. So as you sort of set down this path of bringing this data together, what kind of challenges did you encounter? One from a data lens, and then second from a technology infrastructure lens. Maybe the early days, kind of reflect back on that and share. Because I know you're at a pretty mature state now, but the early days, what did it look like?
Yeah, there was data, there was infrastructure, and then there was what should the visualization be. And all this within the context of who are going to be actual users of this and what value will they get. And so on the data side, the main challenge comes down to there's account data and product usage data, and you got to merge them. And you got to have the right IDs, make sure there's complete data, there is no missing data, or sometimes like there's badly input data as well. So all these challenges happen when you're dealing with data at that level. On the infrastructure side, we needed to actually set up this thing, and then the pipelines to move data from these various data stores into Redshift. And then the third part was visualization, because you want to up-level all the information such that it's consumable by different personas for their specific use cases. So those are some of the challenges we initially faced. And I won't say we have solved all of them, but we are on the journey.
Yeah, it is always a journey. It is, if it were a destination, it would be no fun at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let me now kind of take the other point of view from the GTM team's perspective, right? So assume that the first team that you kind of focus on is getting that information out of the CS team, since you mentioned account health scores. Now, a lot of CS teams that we interact with, there's sort of two types of users that we see there. One that are very relationship oriented, and a few that are data driven. What was the culture in the team, and how's it evolved since you've engaged in this way?
Yeah, I think it's a little hard for me to answer that question because I'm not in the CS team.
Right.
So, but let me give general color on it. And I think our CS team is highly partnership oriented, and that's actually one of Skilljar's strengths, and that translates to thought leadership and how to get best value from the product. And one of the ways the product team can enable and empower the CSMs is by giving them the information such that they can say, hey, here are some insights that will help you, the customer, to get the full value from our products and prove it to their executives, for example. And the thing I realized is when you give people some information, they want more. And so the culture of reliance on data or being data informed starts from even just simple dashboards that then can build on themselves.
Yeah. So this is one of the key ideas that we've centered around at Immersa, that when you present some information to teams in a certain way, that it is a iterative back and forth collaborative process from that point forward, where the consumer of the data looks at some information, then has more questions, then they go back to the person producing those insights and ask for more. So it kind of leads to this back and forth a lot. How did you manage that? What was sort of your approach to managing that iterative process?
Yeah, so we started with the most basic, simple information that we could provide. So imagine something like, here is, let's take from the CSM's point of view. Here is here's your account. Here is 4 different areas of the product. We have multiple areas, but let's take 4. And then of these 4 areas, here's where somebody is great usage, another place where they have not yet onboarded, a third place where they have onboarded, but it's low usage, and a fourth place where it is like a new feature that we have released and they are in beta or some usage of that sort. So that is how they can see like a bird's eye view of how their account is doing. And then once you have that, then the next question becomes, can I aggregate it to something that the CSM manager can use to see like a score across all these accounts, so they don't have to go account by account, right? So that was the next step. And then the third step becomes like, okay, now that we have this, how can we drive insights at a more strategic level for our CSMs and therefore their customers? So that's the journey we are on, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So I have so many questions on that, what you said. So at the strategic level, getting an aggregated view of your install base and health scores and where there's potential risk or growth opportunities, et cetera, there are plenty of tools out there that provide, business intelligence sort of at an aggregate level, right? But when you get down to the account level, translating that context from the aggregate to the individual account or groups of users within an account, can you share a little bit more of the technology and the technical challenges around that, and particularly looking at product usage data, which comes in as event streams that you kind of map into accounts and users and so on? What were some of the technical challenges that came up in that process? So hitting on the second point that you just made.
Yeah, I think the technical challenges, one is at the very basic level, usage drives impact. So it's like understanding what is usage and then the components of usage. Now, the second part is how does that usage translate to impact? And so initially it started with just providing templates for for our CSMs and customers to correlate this usage to business impact. And then the third step is, okay, let's do this at scale through the vast data store that we have. And that was actually, it was released as a product we call Strategic Insights, which helps our customers compare their performance or their program performance against other similar companies like theirs.
Yeah, so kind of benchmarking service.
Yes, exactly. And so the same, essentially the data store and the data that we have captured on usage is powering the templates, these health scores, and these strategic insights. And so the CSM overall has a full view of this. And the technical challenge here is, one is actually putting together all this data in one place and unifying it. The other challenge is like how to make a product out of it, right? And so that's why there's the combination of the two that is that we were able to solve.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so let's maybe shift gears a little bit. Looking ahead, what are kind of the opportunities that you see in terms of, and there's a near term at Skilljar, but let's start there. Then there's a long view of the arc of technology and where that leads with AI and machine learning and whatnot. Come back to that in a moment.
Yeah. So our ultimate goal is how to use data to understand our customers, and then from a business perspective, how to identify customer happiness issues and delight our customers, and then identify upsell and cross-sell opportunities. That's the overall goal of this thing. And then short term, we are focused on connecting more data sources. So like Salesforce has been connected for a long time. We just recently connected HubSpot, and there are more business systems. There's Zendesk for support. There is potentially Muse, Chorus, or Gong, or any of those recordings, because that has customer information as well. So connecting these various data stores. We're still in early phases. We haven't actually figured that part yet. And then after that is I would say, like, we need to go from looking backwards and then going into prediction. So like, how do we identify before something goes wrong, or if there are hidden opportunities, how do you identify them at scale without and in an automated way? So that is, I would say, like the ultimate goal, to be more proactive. And I know proactive customer success is one of the mantras of CS team.
Yeah. So, like, is it fair to say that the first step is kind of providing visibility into the metrics and the data? Is that sort of
step? Yes, absolutely. It's like getting the data unified in one place, and then make it accessible, and then useful for all these various personas that we have, like CSM, product, executives in some cases, marketing, sales. So all these various personas that have needs for this data.
Got it. And then step two, you brought up this idea of using the data in a day-to-day basis. How do you make that consumable and usable? So your health scores, as an example, you mentioned that other scores or processes that are driven off of scores that you've put in place.
Yeah, so this starts getting into the CSM playbooks, which I cannot speak to as much. I have peripheral knowledge on that. But essentially what happens is the product usage data is of two types. One is like, how is it being used? And then what's the trend? Very basic level. And then what are the key features that somebody needs to have onboarded onto or done a certain amount of usage? That's on the product usage side. And then that is aggregated into a score. Now, that's a work in progress. Like, how do you define a score? Is it actionable? Is it simple enough for people to understand and iterate on? So, and then there are specific action items or playbooks that the CSM team has created on what happens if there is product usage of such and such. I'll give you a simple example. So let's say usage is below a certain amount, then there are 3 or 4 things that can be done or recommended to the customer to drive that usage. Right? Same thing, like if something is not adopted, you can say there's a playbook to and talk tracks on how to go help the customer with that. Same thing on the exec sponsor side. Oh, somebody has moved, so how do we go do the next thing? So those are like playbooks that have been built on top of some of the scores as well. But I would say like that's more the CSM leader would have certainly more information on that part.
Got it. So, the health, so like I kind of view this as first aggregating the data and creating the metrics, make that visible. Second, sort of, take action off of those metrics. So you mentioned, for example, with health scores, if there's lag in adoption or there's lag in usage, then there's different playbooks against that. Talk to me a little bit about the predictive part, right? So you mentioned that this is something that you're starting to think about now.
Yeah.
What are you trying to solve for with making some of this more predictive? And predictive can mean a lot of different things. So just maybe double click that a little bit and help us understand what you have in mind.
Yeah. So there are a few, you're right. Actually, there is different ways of thinking about prediction. So one thing we do right now is forecasting. So based on who the account is and what segment they are in, what features they have used, what seasonality, we can predict what is the likely usage. And why is that important? Because usage is also a driver of revenue. So our finance team wants to know what is the likely revenue impact of this. Now, the other part is on prediction is I would say health score, but health score has different meanings. Essentially saying, okay, can we identify what good looks like for a customer, and then use that to say who else has these characteristics and who doesn't, and therefore you can have different actions. Now there's a third case as well, like who is actually going from good to great, in which case there might be some upsell and cross-sell opportunities that you can identify well before renewal. So there are some 3 ways you can think about prediction. And then of course there's like data that is needed to enable that prediction, which is a different topic.
Got it. Do you view this as a way to perhaps reduce churn in your installed base or drive higher adoption? Like what's sort of the ultimate business outcome that you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so in today's economic climate, the big metrics we are trying to move are net dollar retention and then rule of 40 or rule of 50, right? Those, that's what is the current metric. And that's a metric that actually at this point in time, the CS team and the product team are closely aligned. And of course, like on the rule of 40, there's absolutely like finance and sales. So it actually ends up this product usage dashboard ends up being not just a product thing, it becomes a business intelligence dashboard as well.
Right. Got it. I'm curious, Niran, like you mentioned, like this has been a 2.5 year journey for you. You're adding more data sources. You're expanding the types of use cases to where you're moving from presenting data to being more predictive with the models. And then I even heard, for example, like finance team has a need around this, or the customer has a need around getting an understanding of what their usage is and so on. So you're expanding the audience of who gets access to it. So what should people take away from that, or product leaders in your shoes who want to go do this work in terms of ongoing maintenance? What does it take to do this work, right? So and it's actually, maintenance is not even the right word. It's enhancements and improvements and supporting the broader organization, right? So what kind of investment goes into first building this out? And then what kind of investment should people think about and budget for in terms of maintaining that, enhancing and improving the system?
Yeah. So you're totally right. There's an enhancement aspect to this. There's also a maintenance aspect. So we think about this as a product in itself. So there's a roadmap. and say like, okay, here's our vision and here is a roadmap to go after it. And this is probably how companies like Immersa think about it as well, like, because this is your core product.
Right.
And so we're probably not as far as like how you would think about it, but in terms of how we approach it, it's like a product. Now, in terms of enhancements, we generally look at it exactly the same way we would do any other product. What are the core needs at the time? And then how does that line up with where we want to take this particular product? And which stakeholder is the highest priority at this point in time, right? So back in the day, it used to be like the product team really just needs the data to make decisions. Then it became like, oh, this is customer success can use it too. And then we started expanding the number of personas that can be benefited from this data. Got it.
I think that structured kind of approach makes a lot of sense. In terms of sort of the costs, etc. Like, can you share a little bit, just high level, right? In terms of what investment should people think about as they're thinking about building something like this out? Because ultimately, that investment is coming out of somewhere in the organization. In your case, typically out of the product team. But either the product team is funding it, or the CS or GTM team is funding it. So what should what are the considerations from a budgeting and investment standpoint to think about something like this?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, I would say, 3 parts to this. One is the people, there's the technology infrastructure, and then there is other systems. So you can think about it in 3 buckets.
Yeah.
And on the people side, I would say this is like a bulk of our investment capacity, product and engineering, is towards core product and innovations, right? Now, because I firmly believe that the purpose of product teams to drive customer outcomes and business outcomes, I need to allocate some capacity to measure these outcomes as well, and hence this investment. And in terms of like number of people, we have like fractional capacity from our product analytics group, from a data engineer, and then a data analyst who actually builds out the dashboard and then makes these views possible.
Got it.
Then there's a technology as well. I don't exactly know how much AWS QuickSight and Redshift cost, because it's kind of like goes as like one unit, which is hitting the engineering budget. And then the systems, of course, like they're owned by individual teams. Like there's a Salesforce, which is Salesforce and HubSpot and Zendesk. They are individual line items in our cost structure. Yeah,
got it. So Niran, I think that breakdown makes a lot of sense in terms of the way that you just described it. When you like, for people who are starting down this journey now, right? Product leaders, engineering leaders or go-to-market teams that are starting down this journey now, what would be your advice to them in terms of evaluating, say, build versus buy, or evaluating how much investment to make, or thinking about what's the ROI on something like this kind of an effort? Because some of it is tangible, some of it is less tangible. Just what's the advice to somebody who's thinking about starting on this path now?
Yeah, I think the first one is to paint a vision of what value this can be, because a lot of the value here is intangible. You cannot tie it straight to here is the deal you won or the customer you saved because of it. So in that sense, it's like you got to paint the vision, and you got to get buy-in on this is the vision we want to go after, right? And then be realistic about what are the constraints of the organization, like what system do you have, who do you have to build it, build versus buy, like and evaluate. And I've seen your product, Asim, and I think it's definitely worth considering, because you've done a lot of the heavy lifting on this. And then go into start small. Is like, what are the most important dashboards, right? Because if you try to do everything, you'll get nowhere, and it'll be just in analysis or planning hell. So you got to start with the most basic thing, because that itself will drive other needs, and you'll expand from there, and the roadmap will develop towards your ultimate vision.
Got it. Got it. Niran, this has been fantastic as a conversation. I hope the audience here, took away as much as I did in terms of understanding the kinds of challenges and things to watch out for as people embark on this journey. Any final advice in terms of where you see the long arc of technology and sort of fast forwarding that, say 5 years, 10 years? We hear a lot about machine learning and AI and so on. So maybe your thoughts on how you see that impacting this aspect of how companies evolve and use technology internally?
Yeah, so this is now on the dream side of things.
Yeah.
So what would be great is for somebody like me, right? Answer will be different for different levels of the organization and so on. Yeah. It would be something like a conversational interface. Let's say, like, because sometimes you have these curiosity questions like, I wonder who's at risk right now, or I wonder where there are upsell opportunities. I wonder if we can combine this with that and build a new product, right? The data is there, the generative technologies are there. Is there a way to combine those two to give these answers in a reliable and data-driven way, right? Without hallucinating and all that stuff. That would be great. Now, I think there's a path to it, combining all these different systems and data, but that would be great. It would be a huge benefit to product teams, go-to-market teams, and finance. That would be great.
Got it. Okay. Very, very interesting. And unsurprisingly, the conversation for us at Immersa has been essentially that as well, which is, we see the future as as sort of the vision is that co-pilots have become essentially the way that how developers now code today. It's 40% of the code that's checked into today is essentially written by with assistance from co-pilots. Why not the same for marketing, for sales, for customer success, for different aspects of the business? And the data intelligence layer to enable that is essentially what Immersa is building out, so that others can build on top of it to create these new experiences, conversational experiences, and so on. But this has been a fantastic conversation, Niran. Thank you so much for your time. For all those of you who are listening in, you can find Niran on LinkedIn. Niran, what's the best way for people to reach out to you on what's your handle on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I think LinkedIn is the best way. You can message me. I also write some of my thoughts on my product blog, so you're welcome to check that out. That's also LinkedIn on my LinkedIn. So yeah, happy to answer any questions as well.